we were sick a lot, or we just slept through, or we didn't try, maybe this is a good time for us to hit that reset button, because now you got to pass this class to graduate, right? We know that? Okay. All right, as we work today, if you want to take out those colored pencils, I'm just going to be using two colored pencils today. So if you want to grab 2 colored pencils, you can. I'm going to use yellow and blue. So if you want to use yellow and blue, you can. You do not have to. It's up to you. All right, so first off, that word expression. Let's talk about that word. If you show an expression, that means that you might be showing your feelings. But does your facial expression tell you exactly everything you need to know about that person? No, it's just part of that person, or it's part of what they're feeling for that day. So an expression is just part, okay? So it's a math phrase. And the big thing with math phrases, I don't know. This is goofy, I guess. It's not goofy. But big part of a math phrase is that there is no equal sign. So we're not trying to solve anything. There's no missing parts. We have all the parts. We just are going to be finding the answer by making sure we're following our order of operations. Does that make sense? Okay. So, evaluate, that's our other part of our word. We're going to see lots of directions this year, like evaluate, solve, simplify, graph, I don't know, lots of things. When we see that word evaluate, what does it mean to evaluate something? You all already evaluated those expressions on the board. Solve them. Or find the answer. Yeah. Do it. All right, we have 3 examples that we're going to do today. We have one more that we're going to add in, one more vocabulary word that we'll do after our first example. But when I do examples, if you want to write examples, you can. I just start numbering when I do my notes. And I always put my example numbers kind of on the outside of that margin, that red line, and that tells me it's a example. You can do it however you want. If you want to write example, you can, or you could just start writing. These are your notes. You get to use these notes on tests, so the better you take your notes, the more helpful they will be. All right, so we have 5 plus, and then we're going to do a long fraction line. And on top of the fraction, we're going to have 3 minus 9 plus 10. And on the bottom of that fraction line, we're going to have a 2. And then off to the side, times 6. All right, if you're feeling like this is a review day for you, you know how to do this. It is okay to work ahead. Just stop every now and again and look back and make sure that you got it right. Okay, it's not going to be helpful if you did your notes on your own, but then you end up with the wrong answer. All right, so what's our first step when we evaluate this? If we're not sure, we go back to our foldable. Our first foldable is G. What does G stand for? Grouping. Do I have any of those grouping symbols? Yeah, I do. Which one? Yeah, that long fraction sign. This 3 minus 9 plus 10 over 2, in order to do that dividing, I need to have exactly one number on top. So this is where I'm going to use my parentheses, or one of my colored pencils. I'm going to throw parentheses in there and just pretend it's like I see them. They weren't there. They weren't part of the problem when we started, but I'm adding them in. So I have 3 minus 9 plus 10. I'm just going to take a side step here and just figure that out first. So I have a subtracting and I have an adding. So if I have subtracting and adding, which one do I do first? Why? Good. Adding and subtracting, when I have adding and subtracting, we have that line going left to right. It's whatever comes first. So 3 minus 9. If I start at 3, I go backwards 9. I'm going to end up going past 0, and I would go into the negatives. How many negatives would I end up having? Negative 6. Good. Plus 10. Now, if you, in your negatives, if you're like, oh boy, she's asking a lot of me today, it's okay to use calculator. Desmos is on your computers. I would use this one, the scientific one. It's with the 3 and the 27. It's on your computers. I'm not going to flip between my computers, so I'm just going to throw it on my phone quick. For negatives, we just use the minus sign on Desmos. So negative 6 plus 10, and it tells us our answer is 4. Why is it a positive 4?
Because the positive number is bigger than the negative one.
Good. We have more positives than we have negatives, or it went up, and as it went up, it went past 0, so it went into those positives. Good. All right, so now let's go back to our original statement here. I have 5 plus, now we have that fraction, but that 3 minus 9 plus 10 we found out is 4, so 4 over 2. And then off to the side, we have a times 6. Yeah, if you follow past. Oh, did you? Perfect. Yep, trying to be quick. All right, now are we going to add, divide, or multiply?
Divide.
Yeah, we have, before adding, we for sure have multiplying and dividing. Which one comes first, the multiply or the divide?
Divide. Multiply.
So when we look at multiply and divide, it has that arrow left to right. So again, we're reading it left to right. So the first thing that comes is this dividing. So we actually divide first. So what is 4 divided by 2? 2. So 5 plus 2 times 6. Now we just have two options, either adding or multiplying. When we think back to that germ DOS, which one comes first, adding or multiplying? Multiplying. We have G, ER, MD, multiplying. And then adding's at the very end. Remember, that's that base. So 2 times 6, 12. And then our last thing, 5 plus 12, 17. When I was in 6th grade, my 6th grade teacher, Miss Penny, would count our answers wrong if we didn't box them. Even if we had all the work, if we didn't put a box around them, she'd count them wrong. So my habit is to box them. I'm not that crazy, so don't worry about that. But you'll notice as we work, I always box my answers because Miss Penny. All right, so as we look through this, what was our first step that we did? What was really this fraction symbol? What did we call that in our order of operations? Grouping. Yeah, this is really our grouping symbols. So first we did grouping. We got to the answer of 4. And then what did we do next? Good. Then we divided. Then we multiplied. And then our last step was to add. So if you compare that to GermDOS, whoa, so fast. We started with grouping. We didn't have any exponents or roots, so we went to our multiplying and dividing. And remember, multiplying and dividing is whatever comes first, left to right. Okay, I'm not going to notate this every time. This is the only time that I'm going to write this specifically. If this helps you to go back and look and see what we did every time, you should go back and add that as we go. Okay, it's your notes. Add the stuff in that you need. All right, we're going to do one more vocabulary word real quick, and that's going to be the word variable. I heard this word last week when we talked about what algebra is. Can you fill out an e-hall pass? And my name's Morel, M-O-R. Does anyone remember what is a variable? Or what's an example of a variable? This is where we use it a lot in algebra. We use that X. Remember those letters? But what do those letters actually represent? What are they secretly? They're secretly numbers. So it's letters that represent numbers. And the reason why we call them variables, what does it mean if something varies? Something that varies is something that changes. It has like some flexibility. So we're going to write that it can change. And that's where we get that variable, that name for it, is because in x, once we find out that x is equal to 2, does that mean in every problem from now on in all of our lives, x will always be 2? No, it changes. Those numbers can change. All right, we have 2 more examples today. So this is example number 2. Yeah. You got to fill out a pass, and then you can. All right, we have A, B, to the second power plus 5. And then we're going to say times the quantity of. What does it mean if I have a quantity of something? Where do you see quantity in real life? If you guys are ordering something off Amazon, you have to pick the quantity, right? Like how much it is. It's a separate amount. So when I order quantities, if I want 3 t-shirts, but I only want 1 pair of jeans on Amazon, if I take 3 t-shirts, is that going to say I have to have 3 jeans? No, it's a separate amount. So our quantity, when we see that word quantity, that means a separate amount. We're going to use those parentheses. And we have A minus 3. All right, and what we know is we know A is equal to 2 and B equals 4. All right, I'm going to color code this a little bit here. So I'm going to take yellow for A. And this 2 is going to go anywhere where I see that A. So I have an A right here. And I have an A right here. So I like to color code, that way I know where those numbers are going. Again, color coding your notes isn't required. It's just something that can help you, especially if you're somebody who, when you look back at math notes, you're like, my math notes never help me. Well, that might be because you don't color code them. This helps to indicate kind of what our next step is. So b equals 4. I'm going to use blue for b. And I'm going to throw that in right here where that b is. All right, so for A, we have A is what? 2. So I'm going to put a 2 there, where that A is. But it goes A, B. B is 4. So is that going to be 24? No, what does that mean when two things are touching? Times. Good. So I'm going to throw in that little dot for times. 2 times 4. But then we have that exponent squared. And then I'm going to copy everything else the way it is. 5, parenthesis. The only thing I'm changing, or that's varying, is our variables. A gets switched to 2 minus 3. All right, again, if you want to work ahead, you can. If you're feeling like you got this, go for it. Double check at the end that you have the same answer. All right, so we're thinking to GermDOS. We're going back to the G. What does G stand for in GermDOS? Grouping symbols. Do I have any grouping symbols? Yeah. What's the grouping symbols here? The parentheses. Good. 2 minus 3. If I start at 2 and I go backwards 3, what do I end up at? Negative 1. Good. We're doing a small number minus a big number, so it's going to end up in the negatives. Now, when I write this down, I like to do that number, and then I just copy everything else straight down. Sometimes we get a little carried away with doing too many steps at once, especially in a very multi-step problem, so it's important to take your time. All right, do I have any more grouping symbols? Yeah, I have parentheses around negative 1. Is there anything, though, that I can do in that grouping symbol? No. So I'm going to move on to the next level. The next level is ER. What does ER stand for? Good. Exponents and roots. Do I have any exponents and roots? Good. We have that 4 squared. Since it's still our second week of school, if our brain's not quite working yet, if you need to remind yourself 4 squared means to do what?
4 times 4.
4 times 4. If you need to write that in, you can. If you're like, yep, I know that, it's okay to skip that line. So what is 4 times 4? 16. So we have 2 times 16 plus 5. And really it's times, but I'll use those parentheses, negative 1. Okay, no grouping symbols. We have parentheses, but there's nothing to do with them. Do I have any more exponents to deal with? Multiplying and dividing? Yeah, we have 2 multiplying and dividing. We have 2 multiplying problems, so we're going to go left to right. So 2 times 16 first is 32. If you did not know that, can you use a calculator? Yes. Very rarely in this class will I tell you that you cannot use a calculator. Okay, in this class we're doing math past that point, so I want to make sure that you can get to that point. So if you need to use a calculator, use a calculator. All right. Adding or multiplying next? Multiplying. 5 times negative 1. A positive times a negative is a negative. And then 5 times 1? Negative 5. And then our last step is just that adding. So I'm starting at 32, but it says negative 5. So it's like I'm going backwards 5. It's almost like I'm subtracting. So 32 minus 5 would be 20, I think 27, right? Okay. If you want to go through, if it helps you to write down each step that we did, first we substituted, we switched things out. We did grouping symbols. What did we do after the grouping symbols? Exponents. And then we did multiplying, multiplication again, and then it was adding, but we really subtracted. Yep, good. All right, we have one more example. One more today. I gotta flip my page, so if you need this, copy quick. Otherwise, I'll copy at the end. Okay, last one, number 3. All right, this one we have 3. Whoa. Times the quantity of, so parentheses, m minus, and we're going to do parentheses again, 2j plus 4. Now I'm going to close this first parenthesis, so I'm going to close that first one. I still have another parenthesis here, so I'm actually going to close that second one right away. So I'll go parenthesis, parenthesis. And then a minus 6. Holy moly, this one's a lot of work. We're going to say m is 7. And j is negative 5. So double check that you have that written down correctly, because if you have a little mistake, you're probably going to end up with a different answer than we do. Not on purpose, but because of that. All right, I'm going to take a moment to color code. So my M is 7. If you'd like to color code, you can. You do not have to. Just can help. And J is negative 5. Okay, guys. All right, so first step we're going to do here is we're going to switch things out. We're going to substitute. So before I start the math, I'm actually going to make sure it's all numbers to start with. So I'm going to have that 3, parenthesis. Instead of M, what number can we put in for M? 7. Minus, parentheses, 2 times negative 5. I like to use that little dot. That helps me remind me that's not an x. There's not another variable in there. Okay, plus 4, parenthesis, parenthesis, minus 6. All right, so as we take a look at this, do I have grouping symbols? Yeah, in this case, I actually have how many? There's 2. There's 2 parenthesis groups. So whenever we have 2 parenthesis groups, are we going to start on the outside or on the inside? Inside, because it's like, you guys wouldn't know the song anymore, but there's a song that goes, I work out. Okay, we all work out, right? Lifting heavy weights. Okay, we start in and we work our way out. If you want to grab a highlighter, you can to highlight. We're going to work on this inside part first. Again, you don't have to, but if it's going to help you look back at your notes, take a highlighter, highlight that real quick. All right, in that parenthesis, what part am I going to do first? Which operation? Multiply or add? Multiply. 2 times negative 5. Positive times a negative is a negative, so negative 10. Plus 4. If you want to copy everything down as you go, you can. I like to try and simplify it a little bit, because right now I know I still need to do this answer. Have I done everything in the parentheses yet?
No.
No, so I'm still not done with these parentheses. I'm still working my way to one answer. So negative 10 plus 4, when they're different symbols, a negative and a positive, we're really subtracting. So 10 minus 4 is 6. And then do I have more positives or more negatives? Negatives. Okay. So I got down to one answer. Now I'm going to bring everything else down. So I have this 3, parenthesis. I have a 7 minus. Behind this was another parenthesis, and then another minus 6. All right, what's my next step going to be? Good, but 7 minus negative 6. So remember when I have 7 minus negative 6, what are we actually going to do? Yeah, it's actually that adding 7 plus 6. It's goofy. Again, if you're not sure, can you use a calculator? Yes. So 7 minus negative 6, we end up with 13, positive 13. So we have 3, 13 minus 6. You could have written this just as a times 13. I don't know. When I see parentheses, I like to try and keep them if I can. So when they're touching, that means times. So am I going to times or minus next? Times. 3 times 13. If you're not sure, use calculator. Desmos is on your calculators, or on your computers. 3 times 13 is 39. And then last step is 39 minus 6, 33. Yep, that's all for notes, and then we have a quick check. All right, so we still have a little bit of time. We don't have a lot of time, so that's why today, anytime we do notes, there's a quick check. We do have actually a lot of time. We have like 20 minutes. So with a quick check, the point of a quick check is that you can take it as many times as you want.